Hello everyone, that's nice and loud. Are you having a lovely time at Radio Days? And again, are you having a lovely time at Radio Days? Oh, that's good, you are here after all. My name is Matt Deegan, I'm the creative director of Folder Media in the UK. We're really fortunate in that we have lots of projects with companies in countries around the world. And it's always fascinating to chat to them about the challenges they face, what's different, what's the same, and something that comes up everywhere is changing in digital listening and changes in in-car listening. So we're going to get heavy into automotive today with Radioplayer. First of all, can you all stand up? That's good. And stay standing if you have listened to the radio in a car in the last week. It's pretty good. You can all sit down. Just shows the importance of car listening for everyone, including radio folk. We've got a great panel to talk about this issue today. Laurence Harrison leads, is the director of automotive for Radioplayer. We'll also hear from Alexandra Daskalopoulos, CEO of Front Stage in Greece. Tomas, Granryd, head of digital partnerships SR in Sweden, and Laurent Frisch, chief digital officer at Radio France. So a great panel. You all should have the Swap Card app on your phones. If you go to the app, go to the program, go to the session, a green button appears that says discussion. If you want to ask a question or you've got a comment, pop it in there and I'll try and keep track of those during the session. So really looking forward to it. I think, Laurence, you're going to kick us off with some information and some news.
I'm indeed. Thank you, Matt, and thank you to everybody for joining us in the session today. I'm just going to take 10 minutes at the start to update you on a few things related to Radioplayer and the work we're doing in car, and thank you for listening to me. For those of you that don't know, Radioplayer is a unique organisation because we are backed and supported only by radio broadcasters, so you know that we act strategically on behalf of the industry when we're talking to the car companies. Radioplayer is founded on the basis of partnerships between broadcasters, partnerships between countries, partnerships with other organisations in this space. We're proud members of World DAB, Radio DNS, and we've got a great working relationship with the EBU and the AER, and thank you to the AER guys for their help in the session today, wherever they are. But it's the partnerships with the car companies that are really going to help radio secure its place in the dashboards of the future, and I'm going to touch on that. Before we get on to cars, though, I just want to update you on three things that are sort of broader about Radioplayer that are really important. The first thing is that we have a new CEO. His name is Yann Legarçon. He's here in the audience today. He's brilliant. He used to run Radioplayer France, and I'm sure if you want to meet him, he'll be very happy to chat to you. And I hope to get to say a few words about Michael Hill, the outgoing managing director, a bit later. The other thing that is really important is that Radioplayer is growing. And in the last few months, we have seen partners from Finland, Greece, and Luxembourg join the Radioplayer family. And we know that that is going to keep on growing in the future. And although this event is about automotive, I do want to say a few words about the other products that Radioplayer have. Things like web players, smart TV apps, smart speaker integrations, wearables, and so on. We also have a new mobile app, and if you go and see our developer partners Kinnerton next to the Radioplayer Lounge, they will give you a demonstration. But this session is about automotive, and just to kick us off, I wanted to play a short video, specially recorded for this session by the BBC Director General, Tim Davie. Let's hear from Tim.
Hello, everybody. At the BBC, we've been educating, informing, and entertaining people in cars for most of our 100-year history. And today, 20 million people listen to BBC Radio in cars every week. So they're so important to us. Cars make up 20% of all our time spent with young audiences. And we know that cars will continue to play such a unique and special role in connecting with our audiences. That was a big part, and personally I was involved and a champion when the BBC became a founding shareholder in Radioplayer back in 2010. I'm so proud of our involvement in Radioplayer. It offers such an excellent platform for collaboration with other broadcasters, supporting the development of world-leading technology. In particular, we know that the work of Radioplayer is vital in ensuring that our services are well presented and listened to in cars in the future. So I'm so pleased that partner countries are joining Radioplayer all the time. It's such a thrill for me personally to see Radioplayer thriving. I'm delighted that technology partnerships are happening now with Radioplayer, and all the things we're building with more and more car companies allow us to build and shape the future for ourselves with our partners for a future in-car experience which is brilliant for audiences. Through those partnerships, Radioplayer is already powering radio interfaces with more than 2 million cars across Europe. And I know you'll hear more news of growth. So that's why we're utterly committed to Radioplayer. We're investing more in Radioplayer, and we want to see it extended and increase the level of support from across the board. So thanks so much and good luck.
Great to hear from BBC Director General Tim Davie. Now, when we're talking about Radioplayer's work in car, we're talking really about the radio button, the core broadcast radio experience, DAB+ and FM. And when you partner that with the internet, that creates hybrid radio. And that's the best and richest experience that we need to build radio's future on. And what we do at Radioplayer is we provide the car companies with official broadcaster metadata via the Worldwide Radioplayer API, or the RAPI. And they use that to create a brilliant hybrid radio experience. And that metadata comes direct from the broadcasters. So it's things like station logos. This is Matt's station here.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yes, I thought so. You'd love that. Track and artist now playing information, official URLs, podcast and on-demand content, and so on. And they use that to create a brilliant hybrid radio experience. And that's going to be the focus for what we talk about today. That said, we do also have consumer products. And so Radioplayer has developed a Radioplayer automotive app. As many of you will know, cars today, new cars today, are an app ecosystem. So you'll be able to download apps direct to the dashboard. And there is a Radioplayer app, and we have done the work with technology partners like Harman and Frisch, who provide white label app stores for car companies to integrate the app with their stores, so that's also available. But the main focus, our priority, is broadcast hybrid radio. And there's big value in that for our broadcaster supporters. So Radioplayer will create those partnerships with the car companies on their behalf, represent their views, fight hard for radio prominence, I'm sure we'll talk about in the panel, and help create a brilliant user experience. And we also, in return, ask for user analytics. Now, this is a snapshot of some real data from one of our car company partners. It's a very high-level data looking at country-based analytics, but it gives you a feel for what we're going to be offering the stations in the future. So the number of cars that are listening to the station, for example, the platform they listen on, and hopefully the location where they're listening. So I share that because in the coming weeks and months, we're working on that, and we're presenting that in a dashboard to our stations. But it's really about the partnerships with the car companies. This collaboration, these partnerships are so crucial. And our first automotive partner is now known as Cariad. Cariad is the technology arm for VW Group, representing these brands. We started partnering them back in 2017 to power a great hybrid experience. And here's a quick message from Christian Winter, who heads up the radio development for Cariad on behalf of the VW Group.
Hello everyone, I'm Christian Winter and I'm the product owner of radio apps for Cariad. Cariad is the software development company of the Volkswagen Group. We are working together with Radioplayer for almost 6 years now, and the brands Audi, Porsche and Volkswagen were the first to use metadata from the Radioplayer API, such as station logos, station names, streaming URLs for hybrid radio station following. For us, Radioplayer is a very reliable partner with an API that never had any downtimes. Radioplayer Worldwide and their country representatives helping us to generalizing our requests to the thousands of radio stations and companies worldwide. This collaborative approach ensures that our radio experience is the best in market, which helps radio to stay attractive in the dashboard, where the customer has multiple entertainment options such as Bluetooth, streaming apps like Spotify or CarPlay.
From Christian, and as well as Cariad, our current partners include BMW, and we also have another small innovative electric car brand, which unfortunately we're not allowed to announce at this point. But because of those partnerships, Radioplayer is powering the hybrid radio experience in 53 models on Europe's roads, and that's accounting for over 2.5 million cars today. And it's growing. So in the next 12 months, we expect to announce 4 more car manufacturer partners. And I'm absolutely delighted that today I am able to announce the first of those. So Radioplayer's new broadcast hybrid radio partner is Renault. And for those of you, we're so proud of this partnership. For those of you who don't know, Renault Group are the 3rd largest car manufacturer group in Europe. And Radioplayer's official broadcaster metadata is going to be powering a hybrid radio experience in their cars of the future. And this is a long-term partnership that goes beyond just hybrid radio. We hope to develop new features with them as well. And this partnership means that Radioplayer now has agreements and partnerships with car groups representing over 40% of Europe's car sales. So we're really proud of it. And just to finish up, the sort of experience that we want to deliver with our car manufacturer partners can be highlighted in what we're doing with BMW now. This is the BMW iX50. And if you look at this, again, prominence is important to us. This is sort of the default. You see radio really prominent in that home screen. It's configurable, so users can move it around, but it's important about where you start. A nice A to Z station list integrated with DAB and FM. High-resolution station logos and track and artist now playing information, as you'd expect. And they're also using our licensed library of artist images, which just enhances the radio experience. So we think this is what the base level of all radio experiences in the car should be. And just to finish, I just wanted to share a few thoughts to lead us into the panel about characteristics that the future of radio in car, we believe, should have. Now, although technology is advancing, we think it's imperative that we retain the simplicity of radio, the ability to very quickly and easily access the station that you want. We know that it's going to be personalised. We already offer a recommendations algorithm, and we know that we're going to be wanting to offer on-demand content, podcasts, catch-up shows, alongside live radio. The experience has to be seamless. That could be switching between platforms, which Cariad does today, or it could be with your mobile app and integrating with a broadcast radio experience in the car. Voice has to be perfect, and there's work to do there. And I think this is really interesting. We think there is lots of opportunity to get a much deeper engagement with the station's brands in the technology that's being offered today. So that's update from Radioplayer. I'll sit down.
Round of applause, Laurence. So you obviously talked there about working with manufacturers, and that's a slog, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of different companies, all with different roadmaps. What are they asking for from you, or are they asking for anything from you? Is that a challenge?
It's a good question. I mean, I think firstly, what they do welcome is a single point of contact on behalf of the radio broadcasters. So, you know, what the car companies don't want to do is have 1,000 different conversations, especially about broadcast hybrid radio with many different people. So in that sense, the discussions are welcomed. I think the other thing is that we're seeing now, and this wasn't the case a couple of years ago, a lot more interest in hybrid radio. Again, this should be the base level experience for all broadcast. And because what we offer through the Worldwide Radio Player API enables a great hybrid radio experience, it's starting to make those conversations a little bit easier. And the final thing I would say is that the way that Radio Player works is we have different countries and markets that join. And the benefit of being able to go to a managing director in a country who has the relationships with broadcasters, if anything's happening with broadcast radio on the ground, is incredibly helpful. And we can help with that network.
And obviously you talk about kind of hybrid there. There's some people who are very IP focused, some people are very broadcast focused. Some of the car manufacturers saying to you, do they get the hybrid? Do they get the nature of needing FM or DAB in there, or have they got sort of an IP vision?
Well, it's absolutely true to say that the car companies, because we now have the ability to offer that app ecosystem and all cars are connected, there's no doubt that there is an increased focus on connectivity and apps, for example. But I think what's important is that we keep talking about broadcast and hybrid as the most used source for audio in the car today. And we know that because we've done research on it and we've measured it. So along with World DEB, Xperia and others, about 18 months ago, we did a big piece of research, 6,000 consumers, asking them about how important broadcast radio was in the car. And it was unequivocal and clearly the most important broadcast source for them. And we're able to share that with the car company. So I think we do need to keep repeating the positive points about broadcast radio, because if we don't, then that could fall by the wayside. But at the moment, I think a lot of the car companies do understand they have to invest in that part of the business.
I guess that dashboard is potentially more information to show that split between different platforms too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the early things that we've seen indicate that you get the first analytics back. Even now, the car companies can see that actually listening to broadcast radio far outweighs listening to any other forms of audio in the car. And that's really positive. So that kind of tells a very clear story. You need to invest in this.
Alexandra, your country is probably the newest country to join Radioplayer, Greece. What led you and your colleagues to kind of jump aboard Radioplayer?
Okay, so radio in the car is under attack. It has traditionally been center stage, right in the middle of the dashboard, and now that position is slowly changing. So I think industry-wise, one of the biggest threats was when the iPhone just removed the FM receiver from its features. And that shows how big tech can just obliterate radio from a distribution channel overnight, just like this.
Because there was an FM receiver in there, wasn't there?
Right, there was, but the chip wasn't actually at first functional, and then they just completely removed that feature. So at first we fought back, we as radio stations, by creating our own apps or joining aggregator apps that we didn't really control, we didn't get revenue from, or didn't control the branding. And if that whole thing happened with phones, then it can easily happen with cars. And so right now we've seen how AM is no longer an option in new cars, and even worse with Tesla cars. I was also surprised to find out that you actually don't get radio by default in them. You actually need to opt and buy the radio upgrade package.
It's unusual for Elon Musk to charge you for something that is a basic thing.
Yeah. So in order to defend radio's position in radio's place at the table, scale is key. And so there's strength in working together. And by working together, I mean commercial stations among themselves, commercial stations together with public service radio stations, with platforms that go around countries like Radioplayer. And then there's associations like the Association of European Radios that helps facilitate this whole collaboration. So, as you said, we're the most recent country to have joined Radioplayer, and it was not an easy way to get there.
I mean, I've spoken to some Greek radio people, and you're a passionate bunch.
Yes, we are. There's many in the crowd, too. But basically, one of the biggest debates was, we can make our own aggregator app, right? And that's the first thing that comes to mind. That's what many radio groups have done. And so eventually, after about 3 years, right, where we decided to go with Radioplayer, the main reason was, the first reason is obviously the interface and everything that Laurence showed us. It's easy and it moves fast with technology. So we're going to want voice control soon. So that's going to come along, and we trust that comes fast. But the most important thing wasn't that. It was the lobbying and collaboration it offers. So it's one thing if my radio group or anyone radio group goes to car manufacturers and tries to lobby by themselves to each one of these to get the app pre-installed, and it's much easier, more efficient if there's one voice, one app that does that. So in terms of Greece, it's the shareholders of the company that brought it was commercial radio stations, and that's because in Greece, commercial radio is much bigger than public service radio. I know that's not the case in many other countries. So we started off because we had scale amongst commercial radio, and now we're gonna have public service join as clients as well. So the two main obstacles I can see that we saw was first people saying, why should I invest? Will I make more money? And the answer there, it's not necessarily about making more money. It's the way you invest in your online streams, in your transmitter equipment for FM. It's just another distribution channel, and the most important one. So in order for us not to sleep at the wheel and have technology move forward and then wake up one day and not have radio in your dashboard, it's important to collaborate. And the second fear everyone had was, well, if I put my radio stations next to other radio stations of the same genre and they're all grouped together, then there's going to be even more competition. And there, the answer is, if you have one radio listener go to another radio station, you still have a radio listener. But if that one listener goes to Spotify, for instance, then you've lost them to a new technology. So the other thing in Greece, and I don't know if it's the same with other countries, we don't have national radio stations. We're small, but still. And so with connected cars, we'll be able to transmit all over the country, and that's a benefit. So given how much radio listening happens in cars in most markets, and in Greece that's 55% of daily listening occurs in cars, and it's 70% during daytime morning show, and then drive time 72%, then protecting and developing that in-car listening is even more important. So just to wrap it up, as Laurence said, the tide is on our side right now, so we can react. His research from Edison, and I've heard your speeches, there's more than 80% of people planning to buy a car actually think that they wouldn't buy it without a radio, and 89% think it's the most important radio as the top feature, even more so than streaming services. So the first priority of the industry, commercial and public service, is to protect and grow radio, its reach and market share as a medium. And we will do that better working together in projects such as Radioplayer, so we can continue to have our seat at the table. So, thank you.
Tomas, from Sweden, you're further on in that journey and that kind of collaborative journey. Have you seen the benefits of doing that, and what is the knock-on to trying to improve that car experience?
Well, I think that... Is this on? Yeah. Well, I think that you have to look at the car industry and how the car industry adapts to radio in a very specific way, because it takes so long time for the car industry to kind of adapt to radio, right? Stuff that you are deciding today will be actually released in like 7 years ahead or something. So I think that we see small movements of the car industry making the experience of radio better, but I don't think it's fast enough. And you have to be honest today that, one, radio actually in general looks like crap. And two, car industry, and that is not all car industry, but many of the car industry companies are kind of okay with that. They are kind of like good enough. It's a picture, it's sometimes the real metadata with the right logo, sometimes it's not, and it's okay. And it's kind of weird. I mean, you work in the radio industry and you think that this should be a priority. It should be a priority for us in this room. It should be a priority for the car industry to kind of make radio look really, really good. And it's weird that it doesn't.
I mean, we put a huge amount of effort into our apps, into our station websites. Why do you think radio has maybe ignored car, or just assumed that we had a great position in the car up to now?
I have no idea. I think it's probably because it is kind of, it's working anyway, I think. Because it's so well used, as you said, Alexandra. It's so... Everybody is using the car. This thing when Laurence asked people to stand up, everybody's using radio. So why should the car industry kind of work in order to make the experience good looking? And I think that for every year that moves on, we are in a worse position if we are not looking good. Because of course the app industry and the app environment will look good. So I think that this idea of modernizing or doing the visuals of radio much more appealing, it's crucial.
I mean, Laurent, we're getting better as radio stations and actually having to kind of support some of the radio player products to get our metadata in order and start to think a bit better about what we send out into the world. Do you think we're starting to make that change?
I don't know. Hello, everyone. Can I react to what has been said
Sure.
so far? The first thing I want to say is that I have a 16-year-old girl, a teenage girl. I hardly use my car, but sometimes I do with her, and I don't have the right to listen to radio with her in car. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. When I'm in car with her, I need to put her playlist on, which is not on Spotify, on Deezer, but it's a bit the same. She has 3,000 songs in her playlist, and we counted, and only two of them, she discovered only two of them through radio. And 2,998 others were through friends, through me, through TikTok, through Instagram, etc. So I think something is changing deeply, and that's not only about metadata, etc., etc. The second thing is the technology nightmare that car is for us as a radio editor. We have so many different ways to address connectivity in cars. So let's say you have a daughter and you bring her in your car, or yourself, you want to listen to podcast or to your playlist. Well, there are many different technological ways to do that. The first one is just pairing your smartphone on Bluetooth. The second one is using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. The third one would be to use the dashboard system and embed an app or download an app in the system. Well, I haven't experienced yet what is downloading an app in Dashboard OS, but I guess it's not as easy as on my smartphone. There is another way, which is downloading an app or having an app and then connecting your account in all of your apps, Spotify, Deezer, Radio France, Radioplayer, etc., etc. So it can be a nightmare, and we're not sure yet which of the ways is going to win in 5 years from now. The third thing I want to say is that the car industry has different time frame than us. We're fighting for our living. We know that 5 years is very long. The world is changing very fast, but 5 years is very short for the car industry. It's just 1 or 2 generations of cars and of technologies. So to address that issue for us, as radio is really important in car, we need to have different technologies, different ways. One is our own application. The other one is distributing our streams a bit everywhere. And Radioplayer is obviously one of them, and one of important.
Laurence, it's an interesting point, isn't it, about the cycle, the time it takes to update car dashboards. Because they're putting more screens in and more kind of digital connectivity and like an operating system like we're used to with phones, is that time period actually going to be shortened now because they've got more gear in there to update?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. Funny enough, I was talking to Christian from Granryd about this just earlier. And I think we were sort of saying that if you're introducing a new system into the car, you're looking at sort of 3 years, roughly something like that. But of course, with connectivity, you are going to have the benefits of being able to do an over-the-air download or remotely download to add new features or something like that. But if it's a fundamental system change, you may still have those long lead times. And even if, I think the radio industry needs to think about this, even if there was a feature that could be updated over the air for radio, we'd be fighting against a long list of other things that are going to need to be updated in the car to actually make that happen, and we shouldn't be naive about that. So I think, yes, there are still long lead times for sure, but there are opportunities to shorten those a little bit.
And obviously, with cars and the sort of app environment, and as I'm starting to understand a bit more, there's sort of things that can be sort of pre-installed in the car's operating system, and then there can be an app store on top of that. For our broadcasters, is this a new challenge for your own apps to get into these places, or are you looking for aggregators to do some of that job, like Radioplayer sharing?
I can go.
Yeah.
Well, there is actually not a problem for us having an app inside the car environment, and I think that radio companies that are doing stuff now will be ahead because there are few apps in the car yet. So we have today 3 different app stores, and you have to sign an agreement, and you have to produce one app. It's kind of the same app for all these 3 app stores. But the main issue is, will it be prominent? Well, in the first 3 years, it will be prominent because there are no other audio apps, or very few. But after a while, like in 10 years, how will we ensure to be prominent? And that is a key question.
And also, Alexandra, I mean, it's a challenge for broadcasters to satisfy all of these locations, isn't it?
Right, it is. And the most important thing for me is that radio should be like water. You open any faucet and it should be there. You don't exactly know which one of these distribution channels will be there in the future. So to answer that question, you do the work for your own app, but obviously scale is key, and it's going to do a better work as well. So being everywhere is the important thing for broadcasters.
Laurent?
Yeah, same. Except that it costs a lot of money to be everywhere.
Yeah.
So we need to be very good and very brilliant to do that. But we do, actually. We are.
I mean, is there a little bit of trying to judge the popularity of those platforms to decide where the resource goes?
Sorry?
Is the job actually trying to think about how popular and guess how popular those platforms are going to be to decide whether you put something native for Radio France or leave it to Radioplayer to do?
Yeah, it's a different kind of question we have. If we miss the car, we miss a very important thing. So it's not only about popularity of platforms right now, but about being sure that we're not going to fall if the traditional radio broadcast in car falls.
If there's any questions, remember, pop them into swap card, select this session and press the green button.
But just have to add, the way that we used to look at this environment was like, okay, we have 40 different car companies. We have to build an app for every car, and we cannot do that, and it's too much. The thing with this new environment where we see that the Android automotive system is kind of gaining ground so much, the actual challenge is not like that we have to build an app for every car, because the center will be the app stores. And the app store is just 3, so you have to just build apps that works for 3 different app stores. And then it will kind of work for at least 60% of the cars. So it's kind of a different environment. And of course, then you have the 40 rest, the rest of the 40% of the cars, that is kind of different systems. But the system is kind of, it's much more standardized today, and that is good news for us.
I mean, Laurence is obviously kind of competing platforms. Who's in the lead and where's the priorities?
Well, for us, I think I said it in the presentation. I mean, when we go and talk to the car companies on behalf of the industry, we talk positively and confidently about the radio button broadcast experience. You know, you just mentioned then, in an app store environment, there is the ability to pre-install apps. The radio button is going to be one of those apps, right? You shouldn't forget that. It's going to be there. Now, we do need to fight. We believe we need to fight for that to be as prominent as possible. And there are things you can do around that in conversation with the car companies. But we still go in confidently and positive, talking about that experience and showing and demonstrating that it is still by far the most popular audio source. Now, absolutely, the way that technology is changing, we have to have an eye on the ability to download applications, the app stores and so on. But I think it would be a mistake to lose sight of the importance of that way to get into radio. And you know, we haven't got into discussion on streaming costs and things like that, and how they might be handled in the car. And of course, if you're listening to broadcast radio, it's free to air, right? So it's all good. So that's how we kind of start the conversation.
So just kind of thinking about kind of best practices. So the sort of radio player ecology is obviously you've got your stations, countries, and sort of radio player technology HQ. And also it's partly up to the stations to do a good job on the metadata that we've talked about to make these environments start to look good. So what do stations have to do?
Well, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned metadata. Metadata is so important to creating that brilliant experience. And all the stations are doing it with their own apps. The metadata's there. From a radio player perspective, there is a way to directly ingest that metadata from the station, and it flows through our systems and into the car. And of course, like anyone out there at the moment, we're doing some work to try and understand how we can, A, make that easier, but use technology like AI, for example. So Radioplayer Germany have done a really good piece of work on audio fingerprinting that can automatically capture some of that now playing data. And that's also going to help us create that really rich feed.
Because we're competing with platforms like Spotify or Deezer who do a good job of the user experience and what it looks like.
Absolutely, but I mean at the core for us is that the broadcasters should be in control of how their station appears in the car, right? And the easiest way to do that is if they have that ingest platform and can just upload the data they have direct to us, and they know that's what's going to appear in the car. And that's one of the fundamental principles, I think, in radio.
I mean, Thomas, metadata is always a challenge for stations. Playout systems can do things for music, but adding that additional layer is complex for program teams as well. Is it something that programmers and production teams have to think a bit more carefully about with more platforms appearing?
Absolutely, and I think that we come from an environment where you have a picture like this size, and now you have a Polestar with pictures like this. And we are kind of used to having a specific type of visual language in these on the mobile phone. We need to kind of rethink. And I think that the idea of how we should be presenting ourselves, and I think as well, the time where we have like static pictures, or even though you cannot have too much information in a car, of course, and it kind of becomes a bit dangerous, the pictures must be kind of live and vibrant in a way that it isn't today. I think that, as you say, Spotify and other companies are doing a much better work in making it come alive, the audio.
And I guess that's them owning more of the end-to-end flow of their apps.
Absolutely.
But this is also part of our job on mobile apps and websites to make it living and to use the power of the visual to give the full experience of radio.
And is that making internal systems that power all of those things, owned and operated apps, as well as pushing data to third parties like Radioplayer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. Laurence, do you want to?
No, I was just going to make a point about, on the slide at the end there that I showed about some of the characteristics of the future for radio, I mentioned a point about brand engagement. And I think that one of the things that the new technology offers us is the opportunity to deepen the engagement with the station brand through the core radio experience. And I think at the heart of that, yes, technology plays a role, but what we need to think about, and this is where collaboration with the car companies is absolutely vital, is about the user journeys that you can be taken on, because they have to be simple. You can't have distraction in the car, but they also have to be valuable and relevant and contextual. And I think that's where the partnerships theme is so important in being able to develop those in the future for radio in the car.
Great. A round of applause for all of our participants. And Laurence, have you got a few things to add before we round up?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, everyone, and thank you so much to the panel. It's been absolutely brilliant. I did want to say, obviously, we're welcoming a new CEO. We have an outgoing managing director. Michael Hill, many of you know, was the founder of Radioplayer 13 years ago. Unfortunately, his flight was cancelled, so he's not here, but he's going to be watching the video. So I just wanted to thank Mike for his inspirational leadership, wish him well in his next endeavour, and give him a quick round of applause. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you.